This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzaro, episode number 52.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzaro.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. This is Jeff Pellizzaro, golf fitness professional, physical therapist, and your host for the 18 Strong Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. In today's episode, I have a great guest, Shane Lawlor from Lawlor Golf. Shane is a chiropractor over in Ireland that's working with several tour players, some of the big names, Padraig Harrington, Shane Lowry, Michael Hoey, Ross Fisher, Peter Uhlein, a couple other guys, you name it, and he's doing some really great things on tour. Travels a ton, but also has a clinic over in Ireland where he works on his everyday golfers, other athletes, general population people. But today we're going to talk a lot about, the whole teamwork aspect and what goes into working with some of these tour players, and especially working with one golfer in particular who had some recent success at the World Golf Championship at Firestone, which is Shane Lowry. And I'm going to apologize right up front because between Shane Lowry and Shane Lawlor, you're going to get them confused. I get them confused when I'm talking, just saying the names are so close together. So you're going to hear the name Shane a lot here in the next minute or so. But Shane Lawlor, the chiropractor, gives us a breakdown of the week of the WGC, and especially the last day, the Sunday, when Shane Lowry ended up winning. And he wasn't necessarily there to see the win and him following along. And so it's a great story about the behind the scenes, inside the ropes, and everything that goes into that experience. But then what they had to do to refocus and get ready and prepared for the PGA Championship, which was immediately after that win at Firestone. And Shane was actually at the PGA Championship when we did this interview, which is kind of cool because he was on the grounds. He had finished working with some of the guys that morning, and so we get to talk to him in the mix of the PGA Championship. Now, if you'll remember a couple episodes ago, episode 48 it was, we had Robbie Cannon on the line. Robbie is Shane Lowry's fitness instructor and golf fitness professional, and so we talked a lot about the fact that Shane Lowry is an up-and-coming golfer from Ireland, and Robbie really thought that he was going to be kind of the next big thing coming out of Ireland. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, he goes ahead and wins this event. So we kind of discussed the whole dynamics of the team and everything going on there. So this is a great episode for you as a golfer, but also for any of you out there that are fitness professionals. This is an excellent episode because Shane gives some insights into how he got on tour, how he started working with some of these guys, and what were some of the steps that he took and that you can also take if this is one of your goals, to get out and start working on the tour, working with high-level athletes, that kind of stuff. We also jump into the topic, which is a little touchy, where I think it was Brandel Chambly on one of the broadcasts mentioned how Shane Lowry obviously doesn't put much time in the gym because he's a bigger fella, and so he made those comments, and I asked Shane Lawlor about that and what he thought, and so you'll hear his answer in the podcast as we come up. And then we also discussed just some general questions around the world of chiropractic, questions that I get all the time when referring to some of the medical practitioners that I do, from my clients. Is it safe? What about the idea of going in, getting manipulated, and having to be manipulated repetitively for long periods of time? Is that the best course of action? And then also just the safety of it, regarding having your neck manipulated and the cracking and popping of that, and stories of people having strokes and other issues, and what are the precautions that you need to be aware of if you are going to a chiropractor. And Shane addresses all these very well and gives us some great answers and gives us some tips if you're going to see a chiropractor or really any medical practitioner. So I know you guys are going to get a lot out of this episode. I appreciate you being here, and I'll catch you on the other side. Shane, first of all, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I know we've connected over the past few weeks. We had Robbie Cannon on, who also works with some of the guys that you work with, and we didn't want to cram in too many Irish guys right in a row, so we had to we wanted to space out a little bit between the Irish medical team, and as you politely refer to it as the Irish Mafia. And so we kind of spaced you guys out a little bit, and it worked out really, really well because one of your guys, Shane Lowry, who we talked a lot about in Robbie's episode, just had a huge win last week. So first, again, welcome to the show. And I want to give the audience a little bit, or have you give them a little background on you and how you got to be a chiropractor on the tour, both European and PGA golf.
Well, did a chiropractic degree in University of Glamorgan in Wales. So there's 2 chiro colleges in the UK. So I chose University of Glamorgan because it was state funded, so I didn't have to pay the private fees and come out with a really high student loan at the end of it. Then I practiced in Bristol in the UK, which is about 2.5 hours from London. And then Karen and I, my wife, who's also a chiropractor, we moved back to the Midlands in Ireland. Karen's from the north and I'm from the south, so we decided to go somewhere in the middle. And in February of that year, I got an email from a sports car called Dale Richardson, and he had a company at the time, and he was basically looking to expand. So I put the email together and the CV, and Karen said, "You got to send it. It's an opportunity of a lifetime." And lucky at the time, although I'd only 2.5-3 years experience as a chiro, I had done the full ART program, so I'd just finished all my training in that. So I knew that was one of the things that Dale was looking for. So they certainly gave me an advantage when it came to the interview process. And funny enough, the official interview was done at the Irish Open. The Irish Open that Shane happened to win in the Baltray as an amateur, so it was quite fitting.
Yeah.
And then the people that were interviewed, it was cut down to 2 of us, me and a guy called Dr. Jesper Dahl. Jesper works and has worked with Graham for a number of years, Graham McDowell. And from there it started into a trial process. So basically it was the players say yay or nay and see how you get on with them personality wise and skill set wise. And it started there. I worked a couple of tournaments and I've been on tour 6-7 years now. So it's been quite a journey.
Wow, and you've got your own clinic in Ireland, so you've got your clinic, you travel a lot. How often are you on the road with these guys?
The last 4 years I've been averaging 24-25 weeks a year, so effectively I do, it turns out I probably do 12 to 14 one-day clinics when I'm home, just to keep the patients I've seen in the past happy, and if there's any consultations or second opinions that are required, and then I'll see the patients when I'm at home. But it's also good to see some of the general population, the amateur golfers. So it keeps me sharp too, because doing this job makes you very, very specialized. So you lose some of the skill sets. You mightn't see some of the injuries that you would see in the general population, or if I look at Gaelic football players or soccer players. So it's nice to see a little bit of a mix when I do go home.
Sure.
It keeps my skill set sharp.
And are you on the road, basically all week long? Do you get there on a Monday and stay through Sunday? Or what does your schedule look like?
Schedule is generally, let's say, take a major week, or the last 2 weeks. So the major week, I'll arrive the Sunday night before and then start work on the Monday. So I started work here Monday and I'll work all the way through Sunday. So they'll get an hour of therapy and some movement patterns on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to Saturday, and then we'll do warm-ups on Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday as well, depending, obviously, you make the cut and things.
Right. And so, yeah, for you guys listening, Shane is actually at the PGA Championship right now at Whistling Straits, getting ready to prepare some of his guys. As he said, he's been up since 4-something in the morning, working with guys, getting things ready. And again, Shane, who do you have there at the tournament this week?
Shane's here, Shane Lowry, Padraig Harrington, David Howell, and Ross Fisher. So I have 4 guys this week, so I'll be kept pretty busy. And the draw is a 2-2, so effectively I warmed up 2 guys this morning. So David and Ross are out already, and then Shane and Padraig are playing this afternoon. So you're looking at probably 16 to 18 hour day by the time I get finished. It's one of the things you get used to. Yeah,
I bet. Very long days. So do you work with them a little bit before they go out and play, and then some recovery stuff when they finish up?
Yeah, that's exactly as I see it. For 20-30 minutes, check to make sure everything's right. Muscle testing, check the joints, check the range of motion, put them through an active warm-up, and then just make sure they're good to go. So I'll generally see them an hour and a half to an hour 45 before, and then they go and do their thing on the range. And then post round, just make sure there's no niggles, make sure try and sniff out anything before it becomes an issue. And if there is any injuries, to make sure that the therapy is directed at that. And
now you've got several years, 6-7 years experience on the tours, both European, PGA. And I know we've got a lot of fitness professionals, medical professionals that listen to this show, as well as your golfers. So for those people that may be looking to do something like you are, traveling on tour, working with these guys, is there any kind of advice you can give them on their career path and ways that they can kind of branch into doing what you do?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I'm always asked that. I mean, the one of the most important things is building a team. Obviously, I discussed how I got on tour originally, but getting clients and things. Originally, say if we take Shane for instance, obviously because he had a big win last week. Originally, his trainer was a guy called Barry Solon, who's an Irish guy, and Barry worked with Shane for probably 2.5 years. So he set a great foundation for Robbie to then build from. So Barry back then basically helped me sign Shane up as a client, because Shane texted me to take a look at an issue, and then I was able to put them back together. And then Barry's like, well, I think you should probably work on Shane on tour. So it's important to, from the point of to get on tour, is to build a network. You got to build a team. So the thing I'll focus on is the manual-therapy and some movement. But then I have people. So Shane's trainers, Robbie Cannon. Padraig Harrington's trainer is Dr. Liam Hennessy. Peter Uhlein's trainer, who's been on the show as well, is Dave Donatucci. Michael Hoey has done some work with Robbie. And then Ross Fisher sees a guy at home. So effectively, it's building a network. And then the other side of it, besides the networking, is to make sure you're skilling up. So do the TPI courses, Gary Agree courses, do anything that's golf specific. And basically what you're going to have to do is hope that an opportunity comes up and make sure you do the best job. And then you've got to outwork your competition.
I think that's a great point. You know, sometimes
I don't think being the smartest guy in the world is not necessarily going to guarantee that you're going to get on tour or work with professional athletes. You have to be able to interact with them, have good social skills. You don't have to be the best, smartest guy in the world.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You just have to outwork people.
Yeah, you outwork them. You know, I think being humble, being professional, being able to chat and joke around with the guys and just build that relationship. It's amazing what you see when you do work hard and work as a team, you know, not thinking that you're the only one that knows how to do everything, but learning in many different situations. And it sounds like, you know, you just going and starting with that ART course and getting certified there was really a door opener. And I think the advice of going to the TPI stuff, you know, learning as much about golf specific fitness, medical practitioner, whatever you can, and then just working your tail off and trying to squeeze your way through some of those doors is such great advice. Because
even if I'm in the last 6 years, I still do, it varies somewhere from 100 to 150 hours of CPD if I can, either through online or I'll still go to seminars. My wife gets really mad at me for it, but you can't stop learning.
I find that the best people out there, you know, a lot of the professionals that I've talked to on the podcast here are some of the most well-educated, and that's self-directed education, you know, going out and seeking these different courses and clinics and things like that. So excellent advice. I know there's a lot of questions around the business side of what you do and, you know, just anybody working with these athletes on tour. Is it the same when you have an athlete like that? Is it similar to the clients that you have in your clinic, or are there contracts involved? How does some of that stuff work? And I assume some of it's different between practitioners.
Yeah, the structure would be somewhat similar, and obviously the fee structure is a little bit different depending on experience, what you're doing with the player, and how long. The experience regarding the years out here. It's the way I look. The players contract me for the year, and then I have to fulfill a number of weeks, basically, up to 26. But generally, if they want, they'll average somewhere from 20 to 26 tournaments, depending on their status and how many tournaments they play. So, and then the company I used to work for, so some of the guys we still cooperate quite a bit. So if I'm not at a tournament, then those other chiros and physios will help my players if I'm not there. So it makes sure that I don't have to do the 30 weeks because it would be of no benefit to my body or mind.
Right.
But generally they'll pay a yearly fee, and then they'll get the weeks cover. So it helps us too because we get a long-term picture with them.
Nice.
It's nice to do 1 or 2 treatments, but if you get you have a whole year with them, then it really helps. You build a long-term plan. You can screen them and then really go after their mobility and stability issues. And you can't, for me, being on tour, working with tour, but less is more.
Right.
I can't do everything I want to do in a week. I've got to do it over a year or 2 years. So for instance, I'm working with Shane 2 years, Michael Hoey 5 years. So you try and plan in your head how you want their bodies to adapt, and obviously if they're a tournament, you don't want to make any massive changes because that they could potentially affect their swing.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about how, you can make the golfer better, but you can also make the golfer worse if done improperly. So it's definitely a fine line there. All right, I know that then a lot of the listeners and myself included, we talk about this stuff in the gym and what goes on with, when a guy wins, is there like bonuses involved with the medical team? Everybody always asks what's a caddy get paid? What kind of a bonus does a caddy get? Well, on the medical side, practitioner side, is that something that is normal, or you just got your contract and that's it? Or how does that work?
No, there's a contract plus bonuses. Yes, there's generally a win bonus attached to the contracts. It's something that the company I used to work for did, so I continue that on. But we do get rewarded that way. But
beautiful.
Money's probably not money's definitely not the reason that I do what I do.
Absolutely.
But the satisfaction of seeing Shane and the journey that certainly, as I've been part of his team for 2 years, to see him basically win probably, I think it's the 6th biggest event in the PGA Tour.
Well, let's talk about that because we had, when Robbie was on the line, I think it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Robbie was telling us this guy's special. Robbie's played against him, and he knows that Shane's going to be a big deal. And then, sure enough, this past week, he goes out and he wins the thing, and it was so funny because just having that connection with Robbie now, the fact that I've interviewed him, I'd been talking to you, so I knew we were going to be getting on the line pretty soon. I was nervous watching Shane on the last bit of his round. So take me back to last week. Take us back to last week when you're watching one of your players stepping up on the 18th hole with a 1-shot lead. What's going through your head as both a spectator and a friend and medical practitioner?
I go back to that day. I generally am very superstitious when it comes to players. So I had a flight at 5:05. So if you know what time he was playing,
mm-hmm.
I missed the last 4 holes.
Oh, no.
But because I said to Shane, do you want me to stay around? He said no. I said, okay, I'll keep the travel plans and I'll see you this evening if you win. My wife, because I was at Akron Airport, so my wife was texting me. I was following it on the PGA Tour, and Twitter is actually very good because it was up to date. So I knew he was doing pretty well, and shot at you. I mean, the par putt. I mean, I saw the shot on 10, but the par putt on 14 was basically one of the most important shots of that round. So when I landed in Chicago, because it was the easiest way, because I'm flying out of there Sunday to get home. I knew he'd won because my phone just text messages. I could see Facebook notifications. I could see Twitter notifications. So, but I had a kind of good feeling that morning that he was you kind of know when these guys are dialed in.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I don't know if I could have stayed around. It would have been absolutely nerve-wracking.
Now, when you were on your flight, were you just trying to do anything you could to get your mind off of it and not think about what was happening? Because I assume you didn't have, or did you have? Did you have the Twitter going on the plane?
No, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but I was on a little Embraer jet from United, so United Express, and no Wi-Fi, no TV, so it was fine. So I just listened to some music and tried to chill out.
Nice. And then, so was he already planning on going to the PGA Championship? Was he already in this event this week?
Yeah, Shane was 40-something, 47 or 48 in the world. So he was well secured into that.
Okay, so
I did meet him I had one drink on Sunday night, just a little celebration. But I mean, serious work to be done this week. So.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So, and with you traveling before he left and all that, I was going to say, what happens after that win, knowing that there's the PGA Championship the next week, you're going to have to get down to business. I'm sure there's some celebration going on. So what happens that night, and then how do you transition and, kind of help him get his mind off of last weekend and jump right into the focus for this week?
I mean, the one thing that a lot of the public listeners won't know, I mean, Shane is extremely strong mentally. So, I mean, he tweeted, say that he woke up, I'm glad that wasn't a dream. But he was always focused. I mean, people think that he was out on the lat. He wasn't. I think he had 1 or 2 drinks and that was it. And then kept him hydrated. And the one great thing about Shane is he sleeps like a bear. He can nearly hibernate. So for me, sleep is probably one of the best recovery tools. It doesn't matter what I do manually or what Robbie does strength and conditioning wise. If somebody's not sleeping, it can really affect them. So Shane slept well. I mean, what I've seen, because of the players I've seen win before, and the players I work on tour, they generally can be a little bit. You got to be wary of their energies for probably a week or 2 after. So everything the last couple of days is making sure Shane's recovering. So. Like last week, I ran him through one of Robbie's training programs on Neil Hush's and Nick Calusi's place in Akron. I've probably seen them all over Facebook.
Yeah.
So the boys were kind enough to let us use their gym. So I ran Shane through a training program, and depending on his energy, so we kind of tapered down because he'd worked really hard with Robbie the week before. I think he'd done 4 or 5 sessions. So this week, he probably won't do too much, although Shane did go for a swim in the lake last night, so quite a little bit of an active recovery, and then he's going to go on holidays next week with his fiance and a couple of friends, and then he's going to take a couple of weeks off, and he'll be back in the gym with Robbie, and then I'll check in with him when I'm home.
Now, did you get I assume you had a chance to talk to him about his experience of the final day and those final moments before he actually won. Can you give us an idea of what he shared with you about his mindset? Was he nervous? Was he?
I think it came. There was an article today that people can see. He has a column for the Irish Independent, and he said it was the most nervous he's ever been in his career on the 18th tee.
Wow. Yeah. And that shot, that approach shot on 18. I mean, I was sitting here watching it live with my son, and just kind of fingers crossed, just rooting for him. And it was like, oh my gosh, that was. And then you just saw the joy on his face when he knew, okay, I'm safe, I'm secure, 2 putts and I'm in. It was such an amazing shot. And to know that his nerves were racing and his heart was pumping, I think that's so important for the average golfer to be able to see these guys are nervous too. These guys step over a shot, but somehow know how to control themselves. What do you think it is that it is about these guys that they can control those nerves and produce that correct, repeatable impact to produce a shot like that?
That's a really, because some of the players there is definitely some players out there, if they're mentally weak, even though they might have the best game, it will certainly affect them and they won't win. Or they'll just be like journeymen, they'll just do enough to get their card. But from my experience with Shane, he's like, just use him as an example, because with the win, he's very strong mentally. But
and that's what Robbie said was, he's
very, very strong. But the other thing is that you also, the best players learn from their experience. You have to learn how to lose before you win, which has been used in all lives of sport. I mean, Shane had 2 second places last year, came second in Wales. And he came second. He just lost out to the Rory in the BMW PGA Championship last year. So and then he had a good run at the US Open. So all those experiences and the fact that he won Portugal and then the Irish Open as an amateur, those experiences, I think that was important for any life of sport or as an amateur. You've got to expose yourself to the stressors, because no point practicing it or doing mental stuff or meditation.
Yeah, it seems like the guys who perform at the highest level are the guys that can just figure out how to get it done. Like you said, I mean, Tiger Woods back in the day was the epitome of this. And we see guys like Jordan Spieth do it, and Rory. And, I mean, when they have to make the shot, they make the shot. And it's just phenomenal how they can tap into whatever that is and make it happen.
I mean, it's interesting what you say, like those guys, Tiger, Rory, and Jordan. What nearly happens when these guys get such a strong run is the other players nearly get afraid of them, or if they're playing with them, or they know they're in the turn. It seemed like, for me, the thing. I mean, people can say whatever they want about Tiger's game, and to me, the crucial thing is he's not as it's not that he's mentally weak again, but he doesn't seem to have that aura of invincibility anymore. That's the thing that seems to be gone.
Yeah, it seems like guys used to be afraid to play with Tiger Woods, and that's not the case anymore. All right, no. I have another topic that I want to bring up with you, because this is something that was kind of mentioned on the telecast, and I've had questions about it in the gym, and it's the fact that, Shane's a little bit of a bigger guy, and I think it was one of the announcers, maybe Brandel Chambly, said something like, well, clearly he doesn't put in any time in the gym. Please enlighten the audience as to how hard Shane works, because I talked to Robbie about it on and off the air, about some of the stuff that they do, and I know that you see him working in and out. And just because a guy doesn't look like a Rory McIlroy or a Tiger Woods doesn't mean that he's not putting in a lot of quality time in the gym. So what would your response be to that kind of a comment?
I won't swear. No, I'm joking. Look, the wonderful thing about golf is that there is up-teen numbers of body types, and we could list them and categorize them, but Shane absolutely busts his balls in the gym. I've sat in a number of sessions that he's been with Robbie. He's training more consistent than he ever has in his career, because he realizes that to be a top 50 player, he needed to do it. To now go 19th, well, he had to work his butt off. I mean, he was in the gym before Akron. He was in 5 sessions, and he's trained consistently throughout the whole year. The other thing regarding that is, if Robbie was to do too much cardio and drop his weight down too much, that could really affect Shane. Mm-hmm. Because he's a field player. He's not he'll say himself, he's not a very technically, he doesn't like to get too technical, so if his field's off, it could affect it. So certainly over a longer period, over 2.5, 3, 4 years, he's obviously the work that Barry did before, and then he had a nutritionist, Marcus, who's no longer with the team. So Shane has made some massive changes in diet, massive changes in his training. Yes, I mean, even if you compare photos from, they say, when he won in his Irish Amateur to Portugal to now, there is a massive difference. But nor do I expect him to ever be super thin, because I don't think it'd help his game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had a conversation with, I think it was Patrick Duffy, about the impact of, a golfer's weight and ground reaction forces and things like that, and timing and sequencing. And if Shane were to drop 30 to 50 pounds in a quick period of time, that's really going to mess with your body. And so I'm not saying that a golfer shouldn't try to lean out and things like that, because obviously I'm a big believer in that, but at the same time you have to realize, okay, what's right for this guy's game? What is he used to? What's he been? I mean, he's been playing with this body type for a long period of time, and as you mentioned, some guys are more of more field players than just brute power. And I bet Shane's strong as an ox in the gym, just looking at his build.
Yeah. I think he had a PB deadlift before. I can't remember the numbers off my head, but Robbie will probably enlighten us. But he had a PB deadlift the week before Bridgestone. Right.
So, these guys are working, whether you think they are or not, whether they're fitting in their trim pants the way that, the some of the guys do on tour or not. These guys are working their tails off, and you can't not be putting in hours in the gym and working on your body and be on tour for a long period of time. And Shane's a young guy, and I expect it to see
28 years of age.
Yeah. Right. I expect to see him for a long time.
The other thing is societal expectations of what somebody should look like too. I mean, it's a bit philosophical, but Shane's very strong. He works hard. He's very committed, and that's all. That his backroom team needs.
All right, Shane.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's talk a little bit about your specialty, chiropractic, and some of the things that you do, and how that relates to the average golfer, the guys that are listening and, want to work on their body, want to get in better shape, want to feel better. What are some of the just general things that you think the average golfer should be doing regarding, let's stick more with the medical treatment, chiropractic treatment. Is it something that everybody should look into, or is it only when they get injured that they should seek out help of a guy like you?
It's funny, if I look at it from working out tour point of view, a lot of the players who would have signed up over the years came with an injury first. So they come in with an injury, but then if we flip it back the other way, I would rather be treating players for more of a performance therapy model. So sniff out more of where I'm screening them and looking at their hip mobility or their T-spine mobility or scapula stability, glute strength. That's where I would rather be. And because of the one-sided nature of golf, the repetitive loading on the tissues and the joints and the fascia and all the other things, there's no golfer that can get away without having manual therapy done on them, whether it's a chiropractor, a physio, or an osteopath, sports therapist. Good hands-down work will help speed up one recovery, help their joint mobility, and then when you start adding S&C on top of that model, it can really help benefit the amateur and professional golfer.
And as far as like restoration and recovery and things like that, what are some of the techniques that you use both with your professional guys, but also just the guy that's playing once, twice a week? What do you recommend there?
I think to see a practitioner that does some advanced soft tissue. So for me, obviously, I'm biased. I'm an ART guy. I'm an ART instructor in Europe. But with my guys on tour and the amateurs I see at home, I use ART. I use my chiropractic manipulation. I use dry needling. I use instrument-assisted soft tissue, so something similar to Graston and some of the other companies. At the clinic and on tour, we have a class 4 laser from LightCure. So anything that we can basically input into the body, and then as well as using movement patterns to make sure they're moving well. And because at the end of the day, even though we're using the manual therapy on tissues, I have no doubt that we're certainly having some effect over a longer period of time on the brain and its movement patterns.
Can you give us a little description of what ART and dry needling are? Because I know a lot of us, or a lot of the listeners, may not understand those acronyms and terms. Yeah.
Active release techniques was invented by a sports chiropractor called Mike Leahy. He's based out of Colorado Springs. He's been with the Denver Broncos 15, 16 seasons now. Effectively, ART is a soft tissue modality where the tissue is shortened and then the practitioner applies attention to that muscle or joint or ligament and slowly lengthens the tissue, and in good hands it gets really good results. Dry needling is a Western form of acupuncture, so we don't basically look at the traditional Chinese examination, and the needles are generally used locally to help trigger points and well, debating if they exist or not, but tight muscle tissue to help painful areas, to help mobility. That's what I would generally use those two things for.
Gotcha. And when I'm talking about, there's a lot of times I have a couple chiropractors here in town, and I'll refer clients out to, and two of the biggest questions that I get are, and I would say two of the biggest concerns that come up, and hopefully you can enlighten us with your response to some of these. The one is, are they just going to crack and pop me and tell me to keep coming back and just put me on a long-term plan where I have to keep going every single week? And the other is the question of, cracking the neck and the link to possible strokes and things like that. How do you respond when somebody asks you those questions?
That's probably the integrated chiro. So if you see, I know some of the guys you've had on the podcast before. So Craig Davies, Harry Cisse was on your podcast, wasn't he?
Not yet. I would love to have him on.
Harry, there's a number of big group, or even the ones that work in professional sports. Somebody like Mike Lee, who works at Broncos. traditionally, that's why I moved kind of away from my traditional training. That's why I do the soft tissue, the screening, and the other modalities, because I want to look at the body more globally, look at nutrition and hydration and sleep and recovery of these people or of the clients. The tradition, I don't necessarily agree with the traditional chiropractic model, because it was, unfortunately, just manipulation by itself. It's a great modality, but it's not going to get the long-term gains. Manipulating a joint and then doing no soft tissue or no mobility or movement pattern work or no S&C after basically defeats the purpose of putting that input into the system. And I'm not a fan of the big 70 or 80 treatments a year. You're not going to really get any long-term gains, in my opinion. Nor is it the same for, say, some of the questions I get turned to me is that with the physios, they're just doing modalities. So you want to, for me, if somebody, an amateur golfer, is picking somebody to do their manual therapy, make sure that they're doing some hands-on work, that they're doing some movement patterns, that they do screening, and that they do some S&C. So depending on the person's background, the medical person might do some of the strength and conditioning, or they might have a team around them. So whatever they want to specialize. So it's got to be either a team approach, or you're able to, basically like a hybrid, able to do everything that's required for that athlete. But I certainly don't agree with the full manipulation-based 70 visits a year. It's unfortunate people hold that tight to their philosophies, and it's not something I agree with. And then the chiropractic and manipulation and stroke regarding the neck, yes, there has been some cases where the stroke's going to happen anyway, that it's a possibility. Or from my point of view, and when I look at the research, because I do see some female clients home, so does Karen, my wife, the medical history is really important. So you look at family history, and then you're looking for, they'll have signs and symptoms. So you don't have to use manipulation of the neck if you suspect that the person might be a problem.
Gotcha.
Or if you think they're at risk. I think that the biggest risk factors is the 30 to 60-year-old female that may or may not have some health issues. That's definitely a group of patients that have a higher risk in what I've seen.
Are there certain
common sense comes to it?
Are there certain health issues that are kind of red flags?
Yeah, I mean, diabetes, high blood pressure, family history of stroke. I mean, that's got to come into it. Overweight.
And are there tests that you guys do before, when you lay somebody down, if you're kind of working on their neck? I know I've been to a couple chiropractors before. Typically they'll feel around. That you guys are so good with your hands and being able to feel like issues in joints and that might be stuck and stiff. Are there certain tests that you do that would say, oh, okay, I'm not really gonna mess with this, or yes, green light, let's go ahead?
The funny thing is that the biggest debate was over that VBI test of the vestibular arterial basal insufficiency, where you put somebody head into extension, rotate them to the same side, and then the scientists, like Herzog, said that it's actually more stressful on the vertebral artery, which runs up the side of the neck. Generally, I'll always, if I suspect, I'll take a good history is probably going to be the best thing you can do. They might have a change in headache or symptoms that just don't add up, so I sometimes refer them back to their general practitioner. You're just going to get a gut feeling that you shouldn't use upper cervical manipulation on that client. Is there any test you can do? Nothing that's been really documented to be able. I guess you could do cranial nerves.
Sure.
From what I understand, if somebody is having an artery issue, their blood pressure could, if it's bad enough, it would drop, or they would have some issues with that. But I think the first signs would be some cranial nerves. So checking the eyes, face.
I think it's important for the listeners then to know that when you do go, if you're going to a chiropractor or any medical practitioner really, to be very descriptive with your medical history or any changes that you've noticed in your physical symptoms or things like that, because as Shane just said, they utilize every piece of information in your history, to, really decipher what's going on and what diagnose some of the issues, not just the physical test, but also some of the subjective information that you give. So be very careful and very descriptive.
Like one of the things that patients always forget, they always forget something. Oh, did you fracture anything? Do you have any operations? And they come back the second visit. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. And then the other thing they forget to think about is medication. So things like warfarin, aspirin, not exactly the smartest thing to go in. There's a possibility that they could just going to affect the blood flow. So I certainly would be hesitant to manipulate.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot I have a total hip and I have a fusion in my cervical spine. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, and what I've often found now, going through the TPI and doing the screen, the SFMA and things, as I've gone through my career, I probably adjust the neck far less now, and it's not a result for a health and safety point of view, but I find that by clearing up the T-spine, getting the scapula working, and getting the upper neck muscles loosened, the victims in the body are generally the lower cervical spine and the lower lumbar spine. So if you clear up hips, T-spine, scapula stability, glutes, those things can really go a long way to not having to manipulate the neck.
Very interesting.
So kind of cause and effect.
Sure.
You've got to find the cause, and just treating the neck is not going to get rid of the issues. Or it might be as simple as bad choice of pillow. I mean, one of the things here we always tell the players, travel with a pillow. We argue with them about it, but they need to travel with a pillow because then it's the same setup.
Right.
Because you got to think every single week they're different bed, different pillow, different car. Like last week, say for instance, it's Cadillac cars. The players got that. So this week they have Mercedes. So simple little things like that can throw the body out.
Sure. Yeah, I changed my pillow a couple months ago specifically for some neck-related stuff, and it's made a world of difference. And then I've done some recent traveling, and sure enough, notice just some tweaks and issues here and there, but keeping the thoracic spine healthy, keeping the posture stuff healthy, just really, really does make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at my best advice to the amateur golfers, they need to spend more, if they enjoy yoga, do it. If they enjoy strength and conditioning, do it. If they find a good medical person, do that. Build a team around them, but they also have to take responsibility for their own health. So they have to eat well, drink plenty of water. Don't be running to the range 5 minutes before your tee time. You got to go through some mobility, some foam rolling. Do whatever you got to do to get your body prepped, because it's certainly not a sport you're going to retire to play. You've got to be in pretty peak condition to swing a golf club, and to be able to play 18 holes or 36 holes in a day, you've got to make sure that you invest your time and energy in yourself and the people around you to make sure that you're not going to break down. Because for me, I wouldn't like to be playing golf in pain. I can't think of anything that would be more disappointing.
Takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
All right, Shane, before we close up here, I got a few questions that I want to ask you.
Yeah.
First of all, are you more of a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Happy Gilmore. Big Happy Gilmore fan.
I find that all the Euros are leaning towards the Happy Gilmore side. All right, when you first heard the term 18 Strong and saw maybe the website or the podcast, when you first saw that term, what did that conjure up in your head?
I would say that it conjured up find that a golfer, whether amateur or professional, should be strong and healthy, pain-free for 18 holes. And for me, it would be 72 holes. That would be my first thoughts on it.
Perfect. And then before we close up, any last pieces of advice for the audience, and then let them know where they can find you or follow you and see what you have going on.
I would say that obviously everyone's got a little different money that they can invest themselves, but find a team, build a team, find a good manual therapist, find a good strength and conditioning, find a good yoga teacher, eat the best food you can, drink plenty of water, and that'll lead to healthier golf. The more time you invest in your restoration and recovery, the better golf you're going to play and enjoy a lot more. And they can find me at Golf Cairo on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. The clinic's lawlorclinic.ie, and you might see me at a tournament.
Nice. Well, I want to first of all wish you congratulations for last week. I know big success for your team, and you've got a lot of exciting golf coming up this week. Just getting started with the PGA Championship. You've got several guys there, so we wish you the best from the 18 Strong podcast, and I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Jeff, thanks for having me again, and best of luck. And you've had some good people on this course. I'm glad, or on the podcast. I'm very glad to join you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll talk very soon.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Hopefully you got a lot out of that episode with Shane Lawlor. And I think he was very candid in answering a lot of questions about not just his experiences on tour and working with Shane Lowry and the whole team, but also about chiropractic. What are some of the pros and cons, and what some of the changes in his shift as far as the way he treats now and the way that he possibly used to treat. Shane, I want to give you a huge thank you for coming on the show. I know you're a very busy guy, and I know you listen to some of these episodes, so we just want to say thanks for taking the time while you were at the tournament to record this episode with me. And Shane has been incredible after the show, even sending me messages about possibly getting other professionals that he knows on the show. So if you guys happen to follow Shane on Twitter, Facebook, or if you don't, go ahead and follow him. Give him a thanks for providing such great content. And I'm sure that we're going to have a few great guests in the upcoming future simply because of Shane's kindness. So again, thanks to you, Shane. And for all of you fitness professionals out there, Shane gave some great advice as to, what are some of the steps that you can take to get yourself working on tour and keep learning. Always keep learning. Surround yourself with individuals that you can learn from, and you never know where those opportunities are going to take you. Much like with the 18 Strong podcast, I try to get as many great minds on this podcast in order to learn from them, help teach you guys, but really for myself to learn, and it has opened up some great doors as far as friendships, relationships, and it can do the same for you professionally. And golfers, that goes the same for you as far as getting better at your craft, at your game. Surround yourself with a team of individuals that can help you get better, whether that be a fitness person that can evaluate you and tell you what you need to do on a fitness level, or nutrition-wise, or medically if you have some injuries or issues going on, or even simply just playing. Get out and play with players that are better than you, guys that will help you learn more when you're out on the course, and that's only going to make you a better golfer. What's the old saying? You are basically the sum of, or the average of, the 5 people that you hang around the most. So if you're playing a lot of golf with great golfers, you're going to gravitate towards being a better golfer. But if you keep hanging around a 15, 20, 25 handicapper, and those are guys that you play with on a regular basis, odds are your game's not going to get much better. So as always, guys, I want to thank you for coming to the 18 Strong podcast, using us as your resource for everything golf fitness related and everything to make you play a stronger 18 holes. Don't forget to go over to 18strong.com and get your free ebook on some swing speed training. 18strong.com/5yardsbook. You can get it there. And lastly, of course, we always want to engage with you guys on social media. So check us out on the different platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and definitely our YouTube channel. We've got a ton of great content over there as well, which you will soon be able to find all of that on 18strong.com. Thanks for being here. And as always, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.